Good morning, children. It's really lovely to be doing assembly with you all today. I hope you've had a really good start to the week and to the start of our new learning experience called Peace. The question that you're all going to be working on this week is the question of whether war should be celebrated or commemorated when it comes to an end. And that's a really, really interesting question, which I know that you'll be all having lots of discussion about in class. You'll notice that on my dress today I'm wearing a poppy, and that poppy has my granddad's regimental badge on it, and that's because he served in World War II. And it's always been so wonderful listening to his stories about the war. Some of them really, really difficult to hear actually, and others, lots of little funny tales that he would always share about the war. But on the whole, his reflections on the war was that it was an incredibly difficult time and something that haunted him for years afterwards. He saw some really, really difficult things. But when I'm standing at our 2-minute silence, I will be thinking about my granddad, of course, but I'll also be thinking about somebody else. And that was my nan. And she was obviously married to my granddad. My granddad was a soldier, but my nan was actually a child during World War II. And so she had a completely different experience to that of my granddad. She was an evacuee. And one of the reasons why I think about her when I'm having my 2-minute silence and my time to reflect is that I think, oh my goodness, she was so incredibly brave and so courageous. And I wanted you today to meet her and to find out a little bit more about her experiences, which I really hope will help you when you're crafting your piece of writing to think about different perspectives on war. So I hope you enjoy coming to meet her. Let's go. Okay, so here I am with my grandmother, Pauline. And as I was telling you earlier, children, my granddad was at war as a soldier, but at the same time my nan was having a really, really different experience because she was 10, and at that time, Nan, can you tell us a little bit about just before your parents told you about the need to evacuate? Why was it particularly dangerous living where you were?
Well, we lived near an airport, and at that airport there were a lot of Polish airmen, and their planes would come obviously at very low. That's how near we were to the airport. And the house opposite our house, got damaged from what they call the Blitz, really. And so that's when my mother said, right, I think it's time you went away to safer place. And so we went off to be evacuated to South Wales, and I had my elder sister, my next door sister. My elder sister was 12, I was 10, Marie was 8, and the twins, Margaret and Sylvia, were 6 years old. And then off we went up onto the station with our little gas marks in the boxes, and I can remember having a sandwich on the train because bananas were very scarce. So my mum had made up a sandwich of parsnip and banana essence.
Oh, wow.
And it tasted like a proper banana, and that was rather funny at the time.
So you arrived in Wales,
Yes.
and at that time you didn't know how long you would be away from
No.
home.
No.
And I guess you were a little bit excited for a new adventure to see the country, but obviously quite unsure about what was going to happen. And at first, did you think you would all stay together?
Well, we didn't quite know what was going to happen. All we knew, we was going to a safe place. And when we arrived at Cardiff, South Wales, in a big hall, and somebody apparently said, I like that one, I'll have that one. And somebody said, no, you don't talk like that. You don't say they're not cattle. You wait. And fortunately, I went to a lovely, lovely home. But it was a very elderly couple that I was staying with, and we were told to call them auntie and uncle. And uncle was the village postman. And he would come up the road with pushing his bike. It reminded me of one of those Hovis adverts. And it was a very old-fashioned house, an old house, where the house I'd left, I had what everybody has today, a bathroom, a toilet, separate toilets, shower and everything. But when we got there, it was a latch door, front door, like going into a gate. Stepped into the one room, and there was, around the corner, as I called it, there was I think they call it a stable gate, stable door. And when I opened the door, it was a bucket full of water, and that's where they got their water. No electricity. And as I glanced round the room, there was this curtain hanging down in one corner. And when they pulled it across, it was 8 stone steps to go up to the one bedroom above. No bathroom. So when it was had wash time, had a zinc tub in front of the fire. No bathroom whatsoever. No toilet. We had to go out of the house, at the cottage we called it, go past the other 4 cottages, up the side of the cottages, up a bit of a field, and there was the toilet with a wooden seat and newspaper up there should you need it. So that was really a shock, a big surprise.
So not only was it a shock that you had left London, you were now somewhere completely different. You've been separated from your youngest sister, which must have been really, really hard. But you then started school. And can you tell us a little bit about when you saw your sister again at school? That was the only time you got to see her?
Yes, but they were both sad times, because that was when, I don't know if you want.
No, so because Nan was separated from her younger sister, she would only get to see her younger sister when she was at school and at playtime. So she'd gone from living with her sisters in London to suddenly being in the country and not being with her sisters because they couldn't all stay together in the same home. So they're all separated, which must have been really, really hard. So Nan, how long were you away from London for? How many years was it?
Oh, it was 3.5, 4 years. I was 10 years old.
And how many times did you see your mum in that time?
3 times.
So just 3 times in all those years. And when the war was over and you came back and celebration started, can you tell us how you celebrated the end of the war?
Right. Well, my uncle, because my dad had passed away at this stage, and my uncle said, "I'll take you up to Buckingham Palace." So he did so, and we was all shouting outside. There's thousands of people there. "We want the king, we want the king." And it was, well, everybody was jumping around, happy. Yes.
But I presume that for some people, the war, would have been absolutely terrible for them. They may have lost, people they love very much, and they may have had a really terrible experience being evacuated. So after those initial celebrations had ended, people then started to commemorate more, didn't they?
Yes. Well, yes, because Second World War, the First World War was bad enough. They always said there would never be another war. But unfortunately, we had the Second World War. And at that time, actually, when I was there in Wales, Grandad, unbeknown to me, was in a hospital in a place called Whitchurch because he'd had a wound. And that's when I met him later on in years, and this is what he was telling me.
Wow.
If only he'd known that I was down the road.
Yes, yeah. So whilst Grandad was a serving soldier, when he got injured, he was brought to Wales for hospital treatment at the same time as Nan was being evacuated child in Wales. And then you met up all those years later.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when I've got such lovely memories because it was a village. Everybody knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the village baker was a man called Selwyn.
Mm-hmm.
And on Thursdays he made donuts. And I could go down there and stand against the wall because it was lovely and warm, taste the donuts. And he said to me, would you like to do a bread round? Oh yes please. I must have been 13 or something, and I had the old basket and I went round, and then he had a brother called Austin who was the farmer, and he would come every day to the end of the row of the cottages with a churn of milk, and that's how we got our milk. We'd go down with a jug, just fill it up and pay. Something was so alien to what I'd ever been used to.
Had you ever seen a cow before you
No.
left? No.
In fact, you might want to cut it. Sylvia, the twin, she was 6 when they went, and she had a lovely home. They absolutely adored her. They wanted to adopt her. And when she saw a horse in the field, oh, she was so excited. Such a beautiful animal. She said, I love horses, can I have one please?
Oh.
I said, no, you can't, it belongs to the farm. But it was nice for her.
So when you came home from the countryside and it was the end of the war and things, you obviously then started to go back to, as your life as it was before, obviously lots of people had been through really, really tough times, hadn't they?
Yeah.
And your sister's experience was very different to your experience. So for our question, which is, should war or the end of war be celebrated or commemorated, what do you think about that question?
Well, I think it should be commemorated because a lot of young men lost their lives to give other people, other countries, their freedom. And when a lot of these, the young men, their comrades who survived the war, go back to the country, especially place Holland, and they said, you don't know what it's like to be occupied. So that's when you celebrate the end of the war. And they had their freedom.
And Grandad met a lady in Holland who was so grateful for his role in the war.
Yeah.
She got very upset, didn't she? She
Yeah,
thanked Grandad.
she put her arm round Grandad and was crying. And Grandad said, don't cry, that was a long time ago. She said, but you were never occupied. And you gave us our freedom. Because they also lost a lot of men from the war. So war, there's no glory in war.
No.
There's heartache and pain. And we must always remember those young men. And I sat next to a stone in one of the cemeteries, and it said, we prayed in vain, we lived in hope that you would come back again.
Thank you, Nan. Thank you.